Chicago Public Schools, officially classified as City of Chicago School District No. 299 for funding and districting reasons, in Chicago, Illinois, is the fourth largest school district in the U.S. For the 2014-2015 school year, CPS reported overseeing 660 schools, including 484 elementary schools and 176 high schools, of which 517 were district-run, 130 were charter schools, 11 were contract schools and 2 were safe schools. The district serves over 396,000 students. Students attend a particular school based on their area of residence, except for charter schools and selective enrollment schools. The school system reported a graduation rate of 65.4% for the 2012-2013 school year. Unlike most school systems, CPS calls the position of superintendent chief executive officer, but there is no material difference in responsibilities or reporting from what is traditionally a superintendent. CPS reported an average of 20 pupils per teacher in elementary schools and 24.6 pupils per teacher in high school. Approximately 85% of CPS students are Latino or African American. The student body includes 87% from low-income homes, and 12.2% of students are reported to have limited English proficiency. Average salaries for 2008-2009 were $74,839 for teachers and $120,659 for administrators. For the 2013-2014 school year, CPS reported 41,579 staff positions, including 22,519 teachers and 545 principals. In 2012, CPS reported a budget of $5.11 billion, with $2.273 billion from local sources, $1.619 billion from the state of Illinois, and $0.977 billion from the U.S. federal government. Per student spending was reported at $13,078 in 2010. History. As Chicago was started as a trading outpost in the early 1800s, it took several years for a citywide school system with adequate funding and instructional personnel to emerge. As early as 1848, during the first term of the 10th mayor of Chicago, James Hutchinson Woodworth, the city's need for a public school system was recognized by the city council. A high educational standard for the system was stated by the mayor, both to reflect his philosophy as a former teacher, and to add an attribute to Chicago that would continue to attract productive citizens. In 1922, the school board voted unanimously to change policy that allocated library access based on color, the same privileges to race children to enter all the libraries as the white children enjoy, but maintaining segregated schools and specifying that, in each branch library, all employees should belong to the race which attended the particular school. School closures. From 2001 to 2008, CPS, under Aunt Duncan's leadership, closed dozens of elementary and high schools due to classrooms being at low capacity or underperforming, despite claims that the closures would help underperforming students. University of Chicago researchers found that most of the students who transferred as a result of the closures did not improve the performance. These closures were fueled by corporate principles of competition and supported by billionaires, philanthropists, policy advocates, and local, state, and federal elected officials. This is what led to the Renaissance 2010 initiative, which focused on closing public schools and opening more charter schools that were focused on one of the government structures: charter, performance, or contract. During this program's time, it has closed over 80 schools and plans to open 100 charter schools. This also includes 5 military schools, 3 of which have junior reserve officers training corps programs. In response to CPS's announcements in 2013 that it was considering closing nearly 200 schools, many Chicago parents, students, teachers and community activists voiced their opposition through the media and at hearings around the city. In addition, several Illinois lawmakers, including Chairman of the Senate Education Committee William Delgado, pushed for a moratorium on school closings in CPS, citing the disproportionate effect on minority communities, the possibility of overcrowding and safety concerns for students who will have to travel further to class. On May 22, 2013, the school board voted to close 50 public schools. However, the majority of the closed schools have been in poor neighborhoods with a black population, such as Bronzeville. These areas are not only sites of demolished public housing, but now to close down schools. For every 4 schools that have been closed, 3 have been in these neighborhoods. Over 88% of the students affected by these closings have been African American. CPS teacher strikes. In 1983, CPS teachers went on a 15-day strike from October 3 to October 18, demanding a 10% salary increase. Superintendent Ruth B. Love offered raises between 1.6% and 4.8%, but the teachers' union rejected the proposal. The strike ended with the teachers receiving a 5% raise, 2.5% bonus and a 1-year pact. Chicago public school teachers went on a 10-day strike from November 23 to December 3, 1984, which resulted in a 4.5% raise. In 1985, the teachers had a 2-day walkout. CPS teachers went on a 19-day strike from September 8 to October 3, 1987. In September 2012, CPS teachers went on a 9-day strike, walking off the job for the first time in 25 years. The work stoppage, which began during the second week of the 2012 school year, culminated with a march on City Hall. Striking teachers voiced complaints about parent-teacher evaluations and benefits, as well as general concerns about the neglect of the city's public school system. Soon after the strike, CEO Jean-Claude Brizard stepped down from his position. Demographics. For the 2011-2012 school year, CPS reported having 404,151 students, including 24,232 in preschool, 29,594 in kindergarten, 236,452 in grades 1 to 8, and 113,873 in grades 9 to 12. Latinos were 44.1% of the student body, African Americans made up 41.6%, 8.8% were categorized as white, 3.4% Asian, Pacific Islander and 0.4% is Native American. Chicago public schools were the most racial ethnically separated among large city school systems, according to research by the New York Times in 2012, as a result of most students attending schools close to their homes. In the 1970s, the Mexican-origin student population grew in CPS, although it never exceeded 10% of the total CPS student population. From 1971 to 1977 and then to 1979, the Mexican student population in the near West Side CPS District 19 increased from 34% to 43% and then over 47%, respectively. In the 1980s, among the total CPS student population, the numbers of non-Hispanic whites declined, while Hispanics and Latinos, African Americans, and other minorities increased. In 1982, 16.3% of the CPS students were non-Hispanic white, while over 19% were of Mexican, Puerto Rican, and/or Cuban origin. That year, the Hispanic and Latino population had overtaken the non-Hispanic white population. Schools. CPS is a vast system of primary, secondary, and disability schools confined to Chicago's city limits. This system is the second largest employer in Chicago. Most schools in the district, whether pre-kindergarten, 8th grade, elementary, middle, or secondary, have attendance boundaries restricting student enrollment to within a given area. A school may elect to enroll students outside its attendance boundaries if there is space or if it has a magnet cluster program. Full magnet schools are open to citywide student enrollment, provided that applicants meet a level of high academic standards. Magnets offer a variety of academic programs with various focuses, such as agriculture, fine arts, international baccalaureate, Montessori, math, literature, paid-year programs, and STEM. STEM Magnet Academy is the first elementary school in the state of Illinois, and among the first in the nation, to offer a STEM-focused curriculum. The Chicago High School for the Arts is the system's only audition-based performing and visual arts high school. Chicago was the largest city in the country without a public high school for the arts until the establishment of Key Arts in 2009. Selective enrollment. Elementary schools. The school system contains two levels of elementary middle school programs which make selective admission only. Regional gifted centers have an area of focus and require one type of assessment, akin to an IQ test. Classical schools, in contrast to regional gifted centers, take a liberal arts approach focusing on all areas. Classical school applications thus require a different type of assessment. Secondary schools. At the secondary level, CPS operates STEM selective enrollment high schools. Selective enrollment high schools work on a point system. Out of 900 points, 300 points for the 7th grade standardized testing, 300 points for the entrance exam, 300 points for 7th grade grades. Competition is fierce, and many factors decide whether students are admitted or not. Ranking. Students are asked to rank the top 6 high schools. The higher a school is on the list, the higher the chance a high school will choose to admit a student. Points from the point system mentioned above. Other high school options. In addition to the selective enrollment high schools, a number of other possibilities exist for high school students. These include military academies, career academies, and charter schools. Lincoln Park High School and von Steuben Metropolitan Science Center are neighborhood magnet high schools, which also offer various honors programs to students citywide. More specialized options, such as the Chicago High School for the Arts and the Chicago High School for Agricultural Sciences, are also available. Military academies, in partnership with various junior reserve officers training corps programs. 6 high schools are operated as public military academies: Air Force Academy High School, Carver Military Academy, Chicago Military Academy at Bronzeville, Marine Leadership Academy at Ames, Phoenix Military Academy, Rickover Naval Academy. Career academies. Some high schools have been designated as career academies. Quote, according to CPS, these schools have intensified resources to prepare students for careers in business, finance, communications, construction, health, hospitality, food service, manufacturing, performing arts, and transportation. Vocational shops, science labs, broadcast journalism labs, and media computer centers help students gain hands-on experience. Austin Business and Entrepreneurship Academy, Chicago Vocational Career Academy, Dunbar Vocational Career Academy, Prosser Career Academy, Simeon Career Academy. Charter schools. Chicago has a growing number of charter schools under the Noble network of charter schools, which receive the majority of their operating budgets for the same tax sources as CPS. Charters in Chicago receive 10 to 25% less public funding than traditional schools, although some studies show the student achievement and performance metrics to be the same as traditional CPS results. However, in October 2014, the University of Minnesota released a study that shows that Chicago charter schools perform worse than traditional schools in producing students that meet or exceed standards in reading and math. The study also showed that charter schools have lower graduation rates and are much less likely to be racially or ethnically diverse. In 2015, the Noble network of charter schools was named the best-performing large public charter school system in America by the Eli and Edith Broad Foundation and was awarded $250,000 by the foundation. Operations. The structure of Chicago public schools was redefined after Mayor Richard M. Daley convinced the Illinois General Assembly to place CPS under the mayor's control. Illinois school districts are generally governed by locally elected school boards, where each district board hires a superintendent, who in turn hires administrators such as principals, who then must be approved by the school board. In contrast, CPS is headed by a chief executive officer and school board appointed by the mayor. CPS is headquartered in the 42 West Madison building in the Chicago Loop, formerly headquartered in the 125 South Clark Street building from 1998 until November 2014. The main offices of Chicago Public Schools are in the 42 W Madison Street building in the Chicago Loop. The district has offices in Bridgeport, Coleman, and Garfield Park. The main offices of Chicago Public Schools were previously located in the 125 South Clark Street building in the Chicago Loop. The 20-story building, managed by MB Real Estate, and originally built as a commercial national bank, has 570,910 square feet of space. Performance. The April 21, 2006 issue of the Chicago Tribune revealed a study by the Consortium on Chicago School Research that stated that 6 of every 100 CPS freshmen would earn a bachelor's degree by age 25. 3 in 100 Black or Latino men would earn a bachelor's degree by age 25. The study tracked Chicago high school students who graduated in 1998 and 1999. 35% of CPS students who went to college earned the bachelor's degree within 6 years, below the national average of 64%. Chicago has a history of high dropout rates, with around half of students failing to graduate for the past 30 years. Criticism is directed at the CPS for inflating its performance figures through such techniques as counting students who swap schools before dropping out as transfers but not dropouts. It publishes graduation claims as high as 71%. Nonetheless, throughout the 1990s, actual rates seem to have improved slightly, as true graduation estimates rose from 48% in 1991 to 54% in 2004. In 1987, Education Secretary William J. Bennett called the Chicago public school system the worst in the nation. In September 2011, the University of Chicago's Consortium on Chicago School Research published a report on the school system's performance over the course of 30 years of reform. While the report evaluated 3 decades of reform, it measured the progress of such policies by analyzing trends in elementary and high school test scores and graduation rates over the past 20 years. The authors of the report highlighted 5 of the central conclusions. Graduation rates have improved dramatically, and high school test scores have risen. More students are graduating without a decline in average academic performance. Math scores have improved incrementally in the elementary, middle grades, while elementary, middle grade reading scores remained fairly flat for 2 decades. Racial gaps in achievement have steadily increased, with white students making slightly more progress than Latino students, and African American students falling behind all other groups. Despite progress, the vast majority of CPS students have academic achievement levels that are far below where they need to be to graduate ready for college. The publicly reported statistics used to hold schools and districts accountable for making academic progress are not accurate measures of progress. Crime and corruption. In 2014, the Office of the Inspector General for Chicago Public Schools received over 1,300 complaints involving accusations of impropriety. Its subsequent 43-page report and audit noted that corruption and theft were still a major problem within CPS, detailing major theft of schools' funds, kickbacks to CPS employees, falsification of student transfer data, fraudulent selective enrollment applications and ethics violations. In one particular case involving a half-dozen employees, almost $900,000 was stolen in what Inspector General Nicholas Schuler called a major purchasing and reimbursement scheme. The schools involved were later identified as Gage Park Academy and Michelle Clark Magnet High School. A spokesman for CPS later issued a statement that Chicago Public Schools is committed to working with the Office of the Inspector General to eliminate corruption, fraud and waste across the district. In April of 2015, Barbara Byrd Bennett, the CEO of Chicago Public Schools, took a leave of absence during a federal investigation of a no-bid contract to a professional development organization that she had previously worked for as a consultant. She resigned from the position in June of 2015. In October, a federal jury delivered a 23-count indictment against Bennett and alleged co-conspirators. Bennett would go on to plead guilty to a $23 million kickback scheme and was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. In March of 2016, the Chicago Board of Education filed a $65 million lawsuit against Bennett and her co-conspirators. In January of 2016, the Office of the Inspector General for CPS again received over 1,300 fraud complaints and issued another audit for 2015 which continued to highlight issues of corruption and theft. The 2015 audit reported the shakedown of a CPS vendor, a records falsification scheme by a principal, widespread selective enrollment fraud, illegally using taxpayer-funded resources to campaign for political causes, stealing from taxpayer-funded accounts intended for purchasing student materials, and numerous instances of abusing tax-exempt status to purchase personal items.